All right, guys, just a quick-ish video to get you through the organic nomenclature that you need for the bonus question on this exam. Again, it's not going to get you through much organic nomenclature. It is just going to be the bonus on this exam. If you are unsure about other stuff, you're better off spending your time on other content. But if the rest of the content seems pretty solid and you want a little bit of a buffer, then that's what this video is for. Okay, it's just going to be a series of rules here at the beginning, and then we're going to apply those rules for 4 examples. So if you follow along, take notes, write things down, you should be okay to go in terms of this one question. All right, so we got 4 things that we have to think about. First, what's the name of the parent chain? So you're going to have to decide what's longest, and then once you know what's longest, you're going to have to be able to name it. So your job, your first job anyway, is to take these prefixes and memorize them. Those prefixes are going to be based on the number of carbons associated. So that's this number of carbons here. I've given you the short formula, which as we talked about is neither here nor there when you get longer, because we can have branched things. Okay. The ending here is going to be ANE because we're talking about only carbons and hydrogens and only single bonds, or alkanes. So ane is our preferred ending here. The last thing we should hear is ane in our name. Second question is going to be whether it is branched or straight. If it is straight, it has a simple nomenclature. If it's longer than 4 carbons and it's nice and straight, then we put an N. If it's branched, then we're going to have a different set of rules. Those set of rules are going to require us to know how many carbons are in the side chain. The number of carbons in the side chain are going to be associated with these same prefixes. The difference is that instead of the ane ending, we're going to give it an ill ending because that implies that we have a side chain. Ane is going to imply carbons and hydrogens, and that most of the atoms associated with it are involved in the big long chain. Ill means we have a side chain, but we use the same prefixes. Note that I stop at the propyl side chain. You can stop at the propyl side chain as well. You will not have a side chain longer than 3 carbons. Last thing you'll have to do is that if it is branched, you'll have to tell me where. And you're going to number so that the side chain gets the lowest number. Maybe you have to do it from left to right. Maybe you have to do it from right to left. We just need this side chain to get the lowest possible number. We'll see that in just a minute. All right, so name the following. You want to count how many carbons you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All 7 of those carbons are lined up nicely in a row. However, there could possibly be a way to arrange 7 carbons where there's a branch or 2. So we're going to say that this is heptane. Hept represents the 7 carbons. Ane means that there are only carbons and hydrogens and everything is singly bonded to something else. But then we're going to have one more piece that says these carbons are all lined up in a big pretty row. It is a straight chain hydrocarbon. That's what we would call this. Okay? Now, there are 3 that will not get this N, even if they are nice and straight. 1 is methane, 2 is ethane, and the third is propane. There's only one way to arrange these 3. Oops, I should say ane, not L. There's only one way to arrange these 3. We can't really branch off of these without getting a different compound. So these 3 that are in this box don't get the N. Everything above propane, though, butane and above, has the chance of having the N if it's in a big, nice, long, straight line. Now, let's say we're not in a big, nice, straight line, and we have added a branch, right? That's what this is called. Still going to go through the same process of figuring out what our longest chain is. So I could circle this guy here as my big longest chain. And if I count the carbons, it's again going to have 7, and we just saw that 7 was heptane, so I'm going to take that shortcut. Note that you could also circle it this way and be correct. That also has 7, or it would be a heptane. This side chain would end up on the same carbon in either way. So pick whichever one you like. First part of our name, which ends up being the last part of our name actually, is heptane. 7 carbons, only single bonds. That's the ane part. However, we don't have an N now because we have this group. Okay, so I'm going to erase, whoops, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to erase this line here so it's not confusing. And I'm going to draw in my other line again. Okay, we're just going to go with the nice all-in-one line version. Now I can number this one of 2 ways. I could do it this way, which is the way I numbered the last one when I was trying to figure out how many carbons there were. If I do it that way, I end up with that methyl group on the 6th carbon. You always want to take a quick minute and number it in the other direction as well to see if maybe you end up with a lower number. In this case, we did end up with a lower number. So that group is on the 2nd carbon because we always want to give the side chain the lowest possible number. Now, how many methyls do you have in your side chain? Well, how many carbons? There's one single little carbon hanging out. Remember that end is 1 carbon. So that 1 carbon is going to be associated with the methane group, but since it's a side chain, we change ane to il. And we've already decided it's on the 2 carbon. So this one would be 2-methyl heptane. Now the last one we numbered from right to left. So if we wanted to do that again, that would be great. But note that if I only number along the kind of flat part that looks familiar to us, I end up with 4 carbons. There's other ways to name this one as well. So I could go down here and I could get 5 carbons. I could also go crazy and start over here, and I end up with 6 carbons. Your parent chain is going to dictate which thing is hanging off, right? So you want the longest possible parent chain. In that case, the first part of our name is going to be hexane because there are 6 carbons. If it's crazy looking like this, then you'll always want to number it the most ways you possibly can. First part of our name is going to be hexane. Now, you have to decide what the group is. I've just decided that this is my main chain, which makes this my group. That group still only has 1 carbon. It has 1 end. There's no points. It's 1 end. So this is still just 1 carbon. That 1 carbon is going to be associated with methane. Since it's a side chain, we will call it methyl. Now I happened to have numbered my hydrocarbon correctly here, and you'll notice that if I use the orange naming scheme, that methyl ends up on the 3rd carbon. So while this looks kind of crazy to us, really, we go, we could go back and we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's hexane. And I could take that 3rd carbon and put a methyl, and now it looks less scary. This and this would be the same. This is probably as hard as we would get on an exam. All right, one last one. Okay. So we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's going to give me hexane. I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That only gives me pentane, so that one's not quite as long. So that must not be right. Or I could go in the opposite direction, probably. And in that case, I also get hexane. So, hexane must be my longest chain. Now, it doesn't really matter if you take that hexane or if you take that hexane. Either way, you're going to have the same length group, this group here, or this group here, hanging off of the same carbon. So just pick whichever one you like. For clarity, I'm going to go ahead and erase all of this. And I am going to pick the big long chain that's all lined up in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I numbered it from the other direction, my group would actually have a higher number. So I want to give it 3. Okay. It's on the third carbon. How long is it? Well, we have 1 point, which is going to be a carbon. 1 end, which is going to be a carbon. 2 carbons is related to ethane, but since it's a side chain, it will be ethyl. So I'm going to say that I have an ethyl group and that it's on the 3. So this would be 3-ethyl hexane. Kind of like 3-methyl hexane, only we added a second carbon here. Now, if you can follow these 4 sets of questions, you can answer these 4 sets of questions. You need to memorize that in order to be able to answer those 4 sets of questions. Then you will be just fine for the bonus on your exam.